I was asked recently to speak at Exeter University, and I agreed. When I got there, inside the building, I was asked to film a form, a legal declaration that I would not cause offence to anybody in the room. I was told if I did not sign this form, I would be physically removed from Exeter University debating chamber by the security. Now, the security looked like a vegan, so I didn't much fancy his chances anyway at the best of times. Hands up in this room who's a vegan. I mean, God help this debating society if vegans ever get in power. There will be a truly terrible moment. Short people and vegans, two things I simply can't stand. They must never run this Oxford Union.
This is Katie Hopkins, and the woke mob absolutely detests her. Why, you may wonder. Well, she's a white woman who doesn't pander to the left at all, and that gets them really mad. That is why universities run by a mad woke band had to ask her to promise not to offend anyone during her talk. Can you imagine that? That is like giving one the freedom of speech without the freedom to offend. What is even the point of freedom of speech if one cannot offend another person? Anyway, it got worse.
So I asked the room, the chamber, as I would do here, shall I sign? They said yes. I signed the form, made it into a paper aeroplane, threw it at the security, and then I asked anybody in the room that was going to be offended to please leave the room. If you felt that I have the potential to offend you, anything you stand for, the principles you live by, then please leave the room. And only one individual left the room, which I completely applauded, and that individual was then replaced by the crowd outside who couldn't get in, and was replaced by a far better looking individual than was previously in the room. My point rather being, I don't think it's fair to invite someone to debate and then say they cannot offend the audience. I would think the point that you're here is to be offended. I'm offended by your shirt, but you carry on.
That is the point, isn't it? If we want to get the truth of a matter, we must be willing to risk offending someone. It doesn't matter how bad the speech is. We simply cannot criminalize offense. You'd think this would be common sense for university students who should supposedly be interested in the impartial pursuit of truth. But you'd be wrong, as one student in this hall thinks something else entirely.
I believe you once called for a group of people to have a final solution. How does one speak if a final solution has been brought upon them? And isn't that a complete hypocrisy, which you, being here, in many ways embodies when you say that?
So after the Manchester Arena, thank you very much indeed for your point of information, after the Manchester Arena terror attacks, the morning after those attacks, I said we need a final solution to terror. I stand by that tweet, I don't have a problem with it. I say never apologise, never explain, because apologies and explanations never appease this lot. An apology only encourages the bastards, quite frankly. That tweet, people didn't like it because they applied their own interpretation to it. I want a solution that is consistent ending, above all else, to terror in the UK. And I can tell you something, making heart-shaped gestures at the sky is not going to do it. Lighting more candles is not going to do it. Turning off the lights of the Eiffel Tower once again is not going to do it. I am epileptic. If they turn those lights on and off more times, I am in danger of having a fit. This is not the solution we need. You may have seen today Danny Baker has got himself, you can laugh, even if you hate me, it's possible. Both of those things consistently together are possible. Danny Baker today was fired for a tweet. He lost his radio show. Now you may say, it was a terrible tweet, a racist tweet. How dare he? What an awful thing to do. I genuinely don't believe a guy with a radio show on BBC would send that tweet meaning what people have inferred it to mean. You just could not be that stupid. In the same way that I was fired from my radio show for my tweet, it is not possible that you would send a tweet like that in the hope of causing that level of offence. I believe, one moment sir, I'm answering your point of information before you have a second point of information. I genuinely believe people apply offence. You guys apply offence because you choose to. I don't give offence, you choose to take it, and you need to make better choices, in my opinion.
Isn't that the truth? People don't give offense, they take it. And as Katie says, people need to make better choices. The mainstream media then amplifies this offense-taking, and then people think there are more people taking offense, which leads to even more offense-taking. This is nothing but a symptom of the woke mind virus that is working its way through our world, and Katie breaks it down perfectly.
Do continue.
Explain to the public why exactly platforming dangerous religious extremist speech could lead to radicalisation of folks in the UK, which is plausibly true. But wouldn't you therefore agree that from that very line of logic, the right to free speech or to speech is not absolute when it undermines security and undermines society, and therefore you kind of contradicted your very own point. I do very much think you're a great speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the compliment. I'm going with that. I think we do best, actually, as a country when we have people and we are able to disarm them. And sometimes that's with humour, and sometimes that's with debate. You know, I think about jihadis. I've been the target of a jihadi plot to behead me. A lady wanted my head as a wedding gift from her jihadi husband. This is not a made-up story. Was actually reported in The Guardian, who knew. And as a wedding gift, she wanted my head. She brought him a plastic dummy. They practiced with a hunting knife. Security team turned up at my house and installed panic alarms. The lady who wanted my head, she was called I think. I'm not sure, Anne, darling. She wanted my head because she thought it would be a good way of silencing me as the biggest bitch in Britain. But you know, the thing about jihadis is, of course, we have returning jihadis coming back to this country, don't we? 342 of them, certain governments let back in. Returning jihadis, which is a misnomer in itself, isn't it? Jihadis are supposed to go and blow themselves up to get 72 virgins, which is more than you'll find in the whole of Oxford. And instead, they come home, they're returning. So if you're a returning jihadi, you're just a bit shit at your job, aren't you? If you're a bit shit at your job, you probably feel like some days just ending it all, killing yourself, but then you realise you're shit at doing that.
These returning jihadis then come to England and ask for benefits to raise their children and have a normal life. And then we have members of parliament who debate the pros and cons of accepting a returning jihadi back into the English fold. It is a little silly, and the fact that our government condones things like that just shows how misguided they are. But that isn't the point. The point here is that you don't dismiss other viewpoints by refusing to give them a platform. You do it legitimately, by arguing and showing your points. Here is how Katie puts it.
My point being, even though as a target of the jihadis myself, I think the best way of disarming them is through that kind of humour. By mocking the people. No, you've had one already, darling. It's time for someone else to speak. Oh, brilliant. Well done, darling. And I love your shirt. You're the best dressed woman in the room by far.
Okay, thank you. You were quite funny, I'll give you that, and you are quite witty. But I would like you to answer today's motion, because I don't think you have. You have insulted many people in this room, but you actually haven't told us why this House shouldn't support no platform.
Despite all the points that Katie has made, this student still believes she hasn't argued her point about how deplatforming people for not being woke enough is good. Really? She hasn't made the point yet? Well, here is Katie making her point perfectly.
Hidden truths might be revealed. In 1823, your predecessors began this noble crusade, and now it is for you to continue their charge. And the fight is a noble one. Speech is not controversial in and of itself, just as a meal is neither delicious nor rancid. It is determined by the diner. And it seems to me that the listener, just like Celeste, is weaker than ever before. Ears are as delicate now as rice paper, and the Overton window has closed almost to a cat flap. You know, there was a time when I was just an over-opinionated woman in a white suit with patience issues, and now I'm virtually Mussolini. And I don't mind that. That's not problematic for me. I'm comfortable with who I am. But it does rather beg the question, where does this all end up? I ask you, where does no platforming end? Will this House start to censor individual words? Will you start to hand out forms requiring that people don't damage those who are weaker or less right? When the agreement is the precursor to debate, what will be the point of the opposition at all? Will you even have motions anymore, I ask you? Or will you all just come here to nod, like dogs? Again, I'm reminded of Naz Shah. And who will be the arbiter of what is controversial? Where is the metric, tell me? Who knows how to measure what is controversial? Celeste suggests we know the difference between right and wrong. Who decides that stuff? Who's going to be the one who makes the decision who can come here? How are their opinions right or wrong or justified? There is no known metric. There is no controversy meter. Just some crap clapometer dependent on the outrage of the mob.
And that is it, isn't it? There is no reason or rhyme to the madness of the mob. It isn't calculated outrage, just outrage engineered by transient emotions that are here today and gone tomorrow. It is a good thing that we have people like Katie, who can explain just how crazy this is and how crazy we are to even pretend to accept it. Don't forget to smash the like and subscribe buttons if you enjoy videos like this. Goodbye, and see you on the next one.